All right, I'm a few weeks late on reviewing this, of course. Just life's had me busy and everything. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this fight and this fighter, because it's Daigo Higa is one of the premier action fighters of the current crop of champions, of elite fighters, of however you want to put it, man, of just top fighters within a given weight class, or regardless of weight class. I mean, perfect knockout ratio, perfect knockout record, 14-0 with 14 knockouts. And here against Thomas Masson, it was no different. Making the first defense of his WBC championship, which he won, of course, earlier this year against Juan Chiritos Hernandez. For a little while, he was the youngest champion in the planet, up until David Benavidez, of course, managed to scrap together his super middleweight title at age 19. Very, very precocious there. Daigo Higa's 22, but just like he managed to essentially win the belt that had been won by Chiritos Hernandez in a vacant title fight between Chiritos and Naupan Kaikana, which had originally been Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez's, which he vacated when he moved up to 115. Higa very much kind of lives in that. He carries on the torch that Chocolatito left. He kind of carries on that gap that there was at 112 pounds when Gonzalez left the division. And of course, Gonzalez may not necessarily be too much longer for not only boxing in general, but at the very least his actual prime in terms of the special fighter that he once was. Higa at this moment is where Gonzalez was back when Gonzalez was at 105 pounds when he won his first title and was on his initial title run almost 10 years ago now. And the thing is, Higa actually even does it with, I think, more bombast than Gonzalez did it. Simply because I think, not only for the weight, but just in general, he's a heavier-handed fighter. He isn't necessarily the same kind of buzzsaw that Chocolatito is, but I think he packs more power in every single punch than Gonzalez ever did at any weight class, frankly. The fact that he was able to just kind of break down and bust up Chiritos, stop him, dropped him, what was it, 5 or 6 times? And then here against Thomas Masson, against a guy that had, pretty good height and reach advantage over him, a guy that's a bit of a freak of nature to be making 112 pounds, at almost 5'6" that Masson is, a guy that's even fought as high as 122 pounds in the past. Higa showed that, the height and I guess the overall frame size really didn't matter. He went in there. This was a really good fight between these two. Masson showed actually a fair bit of skill. He was actually really scrappy in there. It's just that Higa was just a little bit too much. He was just a little bit too much of a buzzsaw and, just had a little bit too much form. Whenever Masson would kind of double and even triple up on the jab, he had a little bit of success. But the problem is he wasn't necessarily following that up with power shots or setting it up into power shots. Whereas Higa was able to kind of either jab with him, jab under his multi-jab combos, or be able to counter over it with overhand whites and things of that nature. I'm going to leave a link in the description for this fight. It's a fun fight to watch. You're definitely not wasting your time with this fight. Not only is it I think technically pleasing for you guys that really like to see kind of angular movement and things of that nature, but it's just it's a action fight pretty much from the opening bell. Higa doesn't really mess about. He goes in there looking to do damage with pretty much every shot that he throws. He's not necessarily quite as I mentioned before, as much of an overtly offensive fighter as somebody like Gonzalez was. He kind of picks and chooses his spots a little bit more so, which ultimately may allow him to have a pretty long career as well. Whereas Gonzalez was actually maybe somewhat of a minor miracle that he went for as long as he did, considering as high risk of a style as he possessed. He tends to sit back a little bit, kind of move around, move his head and everything on the outside, and then he kind of buzzsaws in, and then he'll kind of look to reset himself if his opponent is starting to kind of throw or even connect with some power shots to him, as Masson did a little bit here and there, but I mean, he's just a classy fighter. To me, he's really the class of the division. Kazuto Ioka, I still rate higher than Higa at 112 pounds simply because, I mean, shit, Ioka's been around just for forever, man. He's the 3-weight champion. You know, he's shown and proven his skills a number of times against both future, current, and former champions unto himself. And you know, so I have to value consistency generally over maybe one or two bombastic performances, which Higa has definitely had. But you know, if you were to put them in there against each other, you know, I'd favor Higa all day. I'd favor Higa over anybody at 112 or below. That includes Kosa Tanaka, talking about winning titles in 5 weight classes. I think Higa would be the brick wall that he would run straight head on into if he tried to make his bones about doing it that way. You know, same with Ryota Taguchi if he moved up. Same with even Pedro Guevara. You know, I think Guevara would probably be probably the most difficult opponent for somebody like Higa because of you know, his kind of boxing style. Or maybe even Ganiga Lopez. Ganiga Lopez, I think, is a little bit more defensively sound than Guevara tends to be. But I mean, the thing is, if you can't really get Higa's respect, which I really haven't seen anybody manage to do it quite yet. Choritos did it a slight bit here and there with kind of the flashy shots that he was able to land. You know, he's kind of one of those improvisational kind of Carlos Cuadras-esque fighters that's just kind of really explosive, like Roy Jones. You know, he comes from the Roy Jones school of improvising what angles and what speed you're going to shoot, you know, punch and you know, launch your shots at. Or even what stance, you know, because he's constantly switching stances. But, I mean, Higa was even able to break him down after maybe a slight bit of trouble the first couple of rounds that he had with him, which I wouldn't necessarily hold against him. I think Hernandez is just the type of fighter that gives people trouble regardless, you know, like Cuadras does. But really good fight between these two. Higa is definitely somebody to really be looking out for. You know, definitely a fighter that I could potentially see crossing over to the States a bit more so. You know, it's unfortunate that ESPN did show the Ryota Murata versus Hassan Ndam fight, but they didn't show this fight, which was on the same card. But, you know, a lot of that is simply because Murata is co-promoted by Top Rank along with Taken, whereas Higa doesn't necessarily have the United States connection. Not yet, anyway. But I think it's definitely there for him, especially with the path that's kind of been, and the trail that's kind of been blazed by Chocolatito, by Nagi Inoue, by Shisake Tsurangasai. You know, I think Higa may have a nice berth to get some fans clamoring for him over here, and, you know, worldwide, frankly. Fun fighter. You know, you don't really have to necessarily know all of the finer points to appreciate the style that this guy possesses. You know, he's coming at you, opening bell, bombs away. Let's see what you got. Let's see if you can take what I got. You know, but you know, he does it with a fair bit of class as well. So that's gonna do it for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.